Hello, 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 hello. All right. I'm working off a very tiny screen, 13-inch laptop, and I have to make sure I have everything lined up. Good morning. How are you? Welcome to Caffeinated Change, episode 2. I'm really happy to be here. After last week's Caffeinated Change, I felt revved up. First of all, I loved that there was interaction. I loved that there was someone out there with me. So thank you for taking part, and thank you for caring, and thank you for the comments after the fact. Yeah, very, very, very cool to be doing something a little bit more off the cuff, unrehearsed, to just kind of like throw myself out there and maybe fail, like interact and have more casual conversations as best I can with this webcam in front of me. So if you're watching this and you're with me, let me know, jump into the comments, write me afterwards, write me a question. I'm getting LinkedIn. Okay. I have my phone in front of me, so because I'm not watching myself on LinkedIn, I'm watching myself on StreamYard, which is the tool that I use to go live. And that means that I can't see if you're with me, and the comments actually come in slightly delayed for me on StreamYard. Before I get going on today's episode, I want to mention that last week, I talked about the fact that I had toyed with different names for this thing. And, change a chino, change Olay, obviously so cheesy. But I got a message from a senior player, a senior person at a coffee maker, a coffee machine company. And he said, he gave me a few examples of names that I could use. And then he said, whatever you decide, is totally fine as long as you're having your coffee out of a DeLonghi. And it turns out that's what I was having my coffee out of last week. So that was very cool to make a connection based on the name. Today, my coffee machine's not working. So I'm having a Campanelli coffee from St. Henry in Montreal. So before I get going, I want to start like I did last time, acknowledging the land that I am on, recognizing the land that I'm on. I'm in Verdun. These are unceded Indigenous lands that I get to enjoy and live off of and work on. And I'm deeply grateful for that. And I'm deeply cognizant of the gift that is. And I recognize the Ganyu-Kahaga Nation as the guardians of this land. I always feel so moved when I do a land acknowledgement because it feels right. It feels true. Last week, I wish I could do one of these Caffeinated Change and it be lighthearted and easygoing and just be like, wow, last week was great and there was so much great news. But so far in episode 2, that's not exactly the case. We saw the devastating news of the hate crime in London, Ontario. The racially motivated and the xenophobic hate crime that we saw out of London. I want to take a moment to think about the Afzaal family. And I also want to take this moment because this whole episode and series is about change. It's about culture change. It's about our role in making change happen. And when I talk about our role in making change happen, what's really interesting to me is that the change that we make on a very small scale always ripples out into larger change. The change that we make on a personal level in our bodies, in the way that we engage in our work, in conversations, in relationships, that mirrors out and ripples out into the way that we engage with our colleagues, into the way that our company systems are built. And then ultimately, my belief is that that will ripple out and impact the way that societally we engage in change. And, the why does a hate crime like the one that we saw in London this week, why does that happen? It is because the system, so many of the systems that govern the way that we engage as human beings, they teach us to label, to discriminate, to ostracize, to recognize the differences between us and other people. And those systems of governance and power and control, what they end up doing is they create thoughts that turn to hate. And that hate turns to violence. And it sickens me really that I feel as though the crime that we saw is actually doesn't exist in a bubble. This is part of a larger issue that in Canada we face and around the world that we face, of people being motivated by hate. And the reason I'm bringing this up specifically in Caffeinated Change is because I want us all to take a moment to recognize the impact that we have on the systems that do teach hate or acceptance. I want us to contemplate the systems that we are a part of. I have some questions that I go back to whenever I feel a little overwhelmed by negative news, to remind myself that actually I do have a lot more impact than I would recognize. And the questions that I ask myself are, what systems no longer serve? Period. What systems no longer serve? Not just me, but in general, what systems no longer serve? What role do I play in transforming that system? What is my vision for system transformation? How can I use my influence to impact a positive transformation? How can I use my influence to impact a positive transformation? We all have influence. We all have impact. We can question what we are told is true. We can question the rules that govern us as a society. And I'm not saying to rebel against them. I'm saying to question them and to become conscious of them. We were all taught to label certain things, to label people in front of us, and also to label ourselves. And part of creating change is to recognize and to become objective of the labels that currently exist. The labels that you place on yourself, titles you may have, the labels that you place on other people. So this whole questioning process the questioning process and the reflective process is actually foundational. It's the beginning of the process of change, becoming more objective and questioning and reflective of who you are, how you view yourself, what titles you use to describe who you are, what things you believe are true about you. All of those things that I just mentioned about other people as well, what titles you use for other people, what things you believe to be true. What we need to do is to question, where did I learn that label? Does it serve? Does it serve me? Who decided the label? Who decided the label of leader, of terrorist, of crook, of good? Who decided the label of good? We really need to be considering where we learned our labels from. Yeah. So we need to question is really the bottom line there. I think all of us questioning on a personal level, what systems am I involved in that no longer serve me? What systems am I involved in that no longer serve the people around me? Yeah. Another thing I wanted to bring up today is another topic actually that came up for me this week. A friend of mine on Instagram shared a post by Alexander Leon, whose handle is Alex_Leon. And Alexander Leon wrote, "The reason that the language of self-care has become so ubiquitous is that it plays into the neoliberal value of individual responsibility. Self-care dictates that we are the problem, not the lack of support around us. The onus is on the individual, not the collective." And that made me think about another post that I saw on Instagram, which talked about the myth of meritocracy. And this is an exploration of the work of Dr. Sheelah McLean. And, very, very broadly, what Dr. McLean is talking about is the notion that specifically as white Canadians and as white Canadians who come from generations of settlers, we were taught that if we want to succeed, that we need to work hard, take responsibility for ourselves, and do it on our own. There's this whole notion of you can do it on your own that we were taught from a very early age. I'm sure this resonates for a lot of the people that are watching this. And I connect this with this whole idea from Alexander Leon about this idea that self-care is about individual responsibility, and that if we want to feel cared for, if we want to feel well, if we want to feel healthy, then it's on our shoulders. Both of these notions ignore the fact that not everybody starts at the same place. The system doesn't serve everybody in the same way. The system is actually set up against a lot of people. And ultimately, what this all comes down to, the terrible acts in London, the notion of self-care actually being skewed towards the individual, and also the myth of meritocracy saying that if we want to be successful, then it's on our shoulders to take responsibility for ourselves. What all of these kind of bring me to today is the notion that if we want to be well as a society, if we want to be well as a company, if we want to be well as individuals, we can't do that alone. We need to be out for the collective, We need to be standing for community wellness. We do not exist alone. We do not exist as individuals. We exist in relationship to other people, to our environments. We are in relationship to other people in our environments everywhere, in everything. And we cannot succeed alone. Caring for yourself has a great impact on how you show up for your community, in the same way that caring for your community and your society has a great impact in how you are cared for. And what this makes me think about, what this all kind of leads to, is the question for this week that I want to be tackling. And my friend Kusa, who I had a chat with yesterday just about all kinds of content related to culture building and how to best get the theories of culture building out there. And Kusa asked me a couple of questions that I think are really important. The first one being, where did I put it? Right here. What change does a leader actually go through on an individual level when they lead change? And the other question that Cusa asked was, can leaders go through this process on their own and then come back to their community changed? As with the first Caffeinated Change, I didn't really overthink these answers, but here's what I want to say about this. I think the change that leaders go through when they actually engage in creating cultural change around them in their workplaces is deeply profound. Because in order for leaders to lead change, they need to get comfortable with their own relationship with change, with transformation. You know, they need to get out of their own comfort zone. It's a very personal and very profound practice to make yourself uncomfortable and to invite other people in, to get curious, to get vulnerable. So there's a very profound change for the leaders in getting uncomfortable and then actually feeling the positive results of that discomfort. The leaders that I work with, the change that I've seen these leaders go through is one where they become a lot more trusting of themselves, a lot more trusting of the people around them, a lot more curious about themselves, a lot more curious about their team. They get a lot more ambitious and excited about new ideas because the ideas aren't just coming from them, but the ideas come from their team who they invite in. You know, the leaders I work with also become a lot more caring and empathetic and interested in the people they work with, because part of creating an environment of change is creating an environment where people can build collaborative, trusting relationships. And that means getting to know the person in front of you. So a leader will go through all kinds of very personal and relational changes in going through the process of culture change. The second question Cusa asked was, can leaders go through this process on their own and come back changed? And to that, I want to say, what I want to answer is, as with all discovery and growth phases, I'm sure you've lived this, there is a personal reflective process where you go inward and you're doing work yourself. But then there's another part of that process, which is coming back to the people around you and recognizing that you are in relationship with people around you and that you will be triggered, and that relationships are complex. Even work relationships are complex. And so can leaders go through this process of culture change or of leading change on their own and then come back to their teams? There's a part where they go off on their own, and then there's a big part where leaders need to invite their teams into the process of culture change. There's a saying, I don't know if it's a saying, but essentially it's something I learned in therapy about healthy relationships. You know, you can go through a really challenging relationship and then go off and be on your own at the end of that and heal and do your own processing and recognize the role you played in that relationship and you know, get to know yourself more. And that's a part of you healing, and that's a part of you growing. But really, we will heal the wounds from our past relationship in connection. We heal in connection. We heal in our relationships. We heal by being around people who create safety or environments of trust and safety with us, who listen to us, who acknowledge who we are, who hear us, and who provide us room to be us. So culture change in a company is very much about relationships. It's very much about connection. It's very much about healing. It's very much about engaging vulnerably and authentically for leaders. And I think fundamentally that all of these topics that I've talked about kind of tie together. That if we want to heal, if we want the systems that we work and live in to heal, to become more inclusive, more safe, to actually serve this diverse, beautiful population, We need to heal as a collective. We need to engage in our communities. We need to not view the situation only through an individualistic lens, but we need to get curious about the people around us and the people we work with, the people we don't know. And we need to create room for their complexity and for our complexity. Not for having the answers, but we need to create room to allow ourselves to be human, and we need to create room for the people around us to be human and complex as well, who have different needs and different beliefs and different values. Anyways, this was a slightly more rambling caffeinated change than last time. I hope you enjoyed it. I do this work because I deeply believe in the power and potential of communities that have really strong cultures, the power and potential of those communities to make change happen for our future, to build better businesses, to build better solutions, to build exciting, creative solutions. And fundamentally, all of that strategy work for becoming a better business, becoming a better leader, all comes back to heart, reflection, self-awareness, all of these deep thoughts that I've been talking about today, how we engage with ourselves and how we engage with our community. Thank you for being here. Send me a question if you want me to answer it. And I hope you have a beautiful day. I'm sending you all kinds of positive energy. I believe in you. And I support you. And I'm with you in spirit. Have a beautiful day.